Okay, I think I have a very good explanation to what the Holy Grail actually is, and it's very good news for all of you. I'm gonna do a deep dive on Mary Magdalene, the Holy Grail, and the chalice, what it has to do with the fourth state of matter, plasma. Like, this was the best trick of the world to make all of us think that the Holy Grail was hidden in something material, knowing how materialistic we can be, when really it's right in here the entire time. It's almost like the trick of life where you're searching your whole life and you realize that it all comes back to you. Okay, let's go deep dive time. So this all started with me like when I meditate, I get messages. Don't just ignore these weird messages, but I basically wrote down, keep following the broken road and the blue rose. All I could think is God bless the broken road because I've had a rougher life. And then the blue rose made me think of Mary Magdalene. Off I went. So they talk about the Holy Grail has to do with the womb of Mary Magdalene. When they talk about the chalice that held the blood of Christ, it refers to Mary Magdalene's womb. So in this reference, I'm going to say that the blood of Christ is all of us. We are the Holy Grail. We each have the blood of Christ or God within us. And I'm saying this from a purely metaphysical standpoint. If you are very strictly religious, I probably wouldn't watch this video unless you're open-minded. Just know that these are just my perspectives. I'm open to all. So, I started thinking about chalices. Here's a picture of the chalice. And because I study plasma, I think the fourth state of matter, plasma, it's known as an ionized gas, but it actually is metaphysical and mystical properties. It is alive in a sense. We can create magic with it. That's for another video. Just listen though. But basically, actually, it's the power outside of us and inside of us that one would call God, or like a mother god. But back to the chalice. So I was like, this reminds me of something. And then I remembered that I looked at archaeological drawings and how they were related to plasma, a photo of plasma taken in a lab, and how they all looked alike. And I was like, that freaking looks like the chalice, which I think is us. Reminds me also of a torus, that we're this torus, we're this part. Then this around us is our aura. We're like the crystallized plasma being inside of it. You know, like the quote, my cup hath run over, or, you know, quotes about filling your own cup. We are the cup. We are the chalice. We are the plasma. We are the inner power. So how does this relate to Mary Magdalene? If you don't have this book, I highly recommend reading it. It's called The Gospel of Mary Magdalene. It was thrown out and rediscovered in Cairo, Egypt in 1896, 50 years before they discovered the Nag Hammadi in Egypt. Like, not a lot of people know about this, and I'm about to drop some knowledge of what Mary Magdalene was saying and how it literally is about, like, us as the chalice or plasma. I feel like you all are sick of me in plasma, but it's okay. I'll never stop. So I'm going to grace you with previews of this book and revelations that are insane in it. So I'm just going to make one comparison because for all of you who know my video about Inanna and plasma, go find it. If you don't, she's the Sumerian goddess who I think is like the first ever representation of plasma. And I think Mary is the second. I think they're the same archetype, which have to do with betrayal and self-love and self-power and forgiveness. They have very interesting stories, not super similar, but very the same archetype. I got at least a message that they're the same person. Like that they're both different people, but they're the same kind of spirit or archetype. I don't know how else to explain it right now. If you don't know what it means, go look up Carl Jung and archetypes. So it said Jesus heals Mary Magdalene by freeing her from the 7 demons. I think this is basically her 7 chakras, and that Jesus, or the Son of God, or plasma, heals her from her ego or her attachments that are rooted in every chakra, so she could be like united with God, or basically know who her true self is without all of those attachments. The resurrection, the rebirth, the phoenix rising from the ashes, like we all can do that. I'll talk about this in another video, but everyone's like, oh, how do you harness plasma? How do you harness this magic? Like, why don't we have telepathy? Why don't we have any of those things? I fully think we can have all of these magical things. I think the first step is connecting back to our soul and healing our trauma and loving ourselves. And I literally think through realizing our self-worth and power, loving ourselves, healing our trauma, and then working as a community, but also on our own, we can actually have access to these powers or this plasma power. Oh, and the word for the Bible was Helios Biblios, sun book. Anyone? Plasma book? Obviously, Helios is a man, but it's actually a woman. But of course, the Greeks said it was a man, it's fine. But calling it the shining, radiant matter, plasma. Maybe it's a mix of a man and a woman, I don't know. But plasma is, at its core, in my mind, more feminine. Just the sun is made of plasma. Just had to put it out there. Plasma, okay. So in the book, this guy, before we get into her actual gospel, says that it is not a dualistic anthropology or a metaphysics of being with the essences to which we have been accustomed to in Western philosophy. Instead, it's a fourfold anthropology and a metaphysics of the imaginal, whose keys most liberated and informed minds, the most liberated and informed minds of our era, have just begun to rediscover. Like, we're just rediscovering this archetype ourselves. And the imaginal realm is literally plasma. It's the in-between. I'm gonna post another video after this. It's called the new sphere, some people call it. Once again, Carl Jung called the imaginal realm the collective unconscious. This is where archetypes were held. This is where memories, dreams, reflections are held. This is where ideas come from. All in this great plasma field that we are made of too. And it holds our consciousness, and our consciousness can mold it. It's all just a big playpen. And Mary knew this all, which I'm getting into. We should have listened to her gospel, but I think it scared people because it even talks in this book, and I'm not going to show that part, about the men were very scared of her, and like they were like, what is she saying, bro? They were like, Jesus, help. So he calls it a vision of nous, giving us access to the intermediate realm between the sensory and the spiritual. They also talk about reaching it through a faculty of perception that is peculiar to it alone. That is kind of what I'm writing about in my new book, like how to reach, what to do and how to reach this plasma. Subscribe on my Stan store for a free email when it comes out, because I'm writing it. Okay. It also talks about in this realm, Mary has her meetings with the resurrected Christ, like because it holds spirit and consciousness. This is my favorite part of the book. It says, this reveals a plasma field, that has been little explored by contemporary philosophies, which still oscillate between the metaphysics of being and otherness. The task of the next century, this guy's a genius, will surely be one of engagement with this philosophy of openness, or the in-between realm. Think multidimensional, paradoxical. Think the divine child rather than the divine feminine or masculine. Philosophy will no longer seek its missing links in Greek or Semitic thought, but in this oriented synthesis, rejected by both sides, which begins to reveal itself in these early Christian texts, which I'm about to read. The imagination creates and is universal creation itself. Every reality is imaginal because it is able to present itself as a reality. To speak the imaginal world is nothing less than to contemplate a metaphysics of being, where subject and object are born together in the same creative act of transcendental imagination. Basically, our consciousness and plasma or sentience are working together, and everything is a story. Terry Gilliam, the filmmaker, actually talks about that in his films. It's all what we believe is what we see. We are creating, we're the creator, but we're also co-creating with the creator. One really interesting thing, this is the stuff she wrote, it's not very long, as there is no sin, it is you who makes sin exist. When they say only God can judge me, it's actually only you can judge you. And a lot of bad people know that this plasma is a neutral power. It is benevolent, but it's neutral and can be used for bad or good, unfortunately, but we have to use it for good. Once you know that, you can literally forgive yourself for your mistakes because God is you and has forgiven you. Basically, she goes on to say that connecting to your soul, you will never sin. If you're doing what's in line with your soul, not with your fear, which is what most people do. She also says, it is neither through the soul nor spirit, but the noose between the two, which sees the vision, and it is this which... Oh my God, pages 11 and 14 through 14 are missing. That's crazy. So this is discontinued, I guess. But this is literally her talking about like plasma beings or wisdom. In my mind, this is a picture. It's called the Magdalene with the smoking flame. And I don't know what the heck people think it means because I've heard some weird things. But she's touching her face in the skull. I think it's saying we're the same, dead or alive. What we really are is the flame. It's the plasma. It's the daemon, the smokeless fire, the jinn. We're plasma beings. We're souls forever. This is just the material world, which has a lot to teach us. I ran out of time. I hope this made sense.